All right, peace on earth. Excuse my quick start, little throat coughing up. I am going to contrast today the institutional socialism that we have, or as Orwell called it, oligarchical collectivism, and that's more accurate. And I'll break that down this episode too. But contrast that with what is being proposed by more progressive minds all around the world, and in some places being put forth, individual socialism. So that's the topic for today's Tai Chi and Chai Tea talk. I am having a little coffee currently, which let's see, this will be my second cup of coffee. I also had some herbal tea today, so don't doubt it. Gotta enjoy a little go-to cola, ginseng, golden seal. Putting together my. I had some reishi and some faux tea in there too. You gotta have your herbs. Gotta have your herbs. Don't get caught slipping without your herbs. Matter of fact, chai tea keeps your digestion functioning properly as a herbal mix. That's just a herbal mix in and of itself. So I'm as usual checking out the current dialectic in the collective, and maybe it's always been this essential conversation, boil it down, but definitely right now, despite all the big brother interventions of the vocabulary to try to steer our thinking away from actuality, the conversation is essentially about individuals and institutions. And it's always been this way. The right of kings, the divine right of kings is what we were taught, this institutionalization over individuation, what we were taught it was called 300 years ago and so forth. Despots, feudalism, goes back more, monarchies, these things go back, right? But it all comes down to that. Institutions versus individuals. And what we have today is a really covert fashioned oligarchical collectivism. And the oligarchical collectivism, if you start off by speaking the term as a robot, you'll get it. But it is essentially the best way to depict oligarchical collectivism is as a pyramid. And what we have, everyone knows that we have a pyramid system locally, nationally, globally. And you have a pyramid system in these manners. It's not as the Great Pyramid of Khufu, it's not made of one stone. And that's the oligarchies, right? Each aspect, law, institution unto itself, provision of mining and refining resources. Each one of these systems unto itself is a oligarchy, right? And you got all these energy oligarchies, national oligarchies, so on and so forth. And they form the pyramid, which is the collectivism. Oligarchical collectivism is the pyramid system that we see now, and we've seen ever more, right? I mean, Orwell, in his book Within the Book, 1984, in his theory and practice to oligarchical collectivism, he starts it off throughout recorded time, and that's essentially the poignant remark of that text. Certainly not the only poignant part, but He starts it off throughout recorded time. It's always been this way, right? And the confusion of the word socialism is a whole process unto itself, and but moreover, the confusion of our history of oligarchical collectivism, the belittling of individuals by all these different blocks of the pyramid. That's the real story, right? Is the core correspondences between all these histories, right? What has it always been? Divine right of kings, feudalism, what? But wait. The church, the this church, that church. What has it always been? Oligarchical collectivism. And let another way to really look at that as it's manifest today is institutional socialism. This is what, in its simplest aspect, most obvious, beyond all the subtleties that are ingrained for the collective to accept, institutional socialism. One of the most remarkable and obvious ones is bailouts. Bailouts for institutions, not individuals. That should set off your alarm, right? I gotta get in some sound effects. So, institutional socialism is most obviously starkly at issue with the bailouts, but more subtly, it's in this idea where if you start a business, you don't spend your own money. Apply that concept to institutions. Institutions roll that way. Individuals, it might be opportunistic for them to do that. But when institutions do it, it's oligarchic, as in the subtle raising of money through taxpayers to build sports stadiums. Uh, Literally, the collective paid for their bread and circus. And let me interject my overall point to again celebrate Tai Chi and Chai Tea as healthy philosophical means that our founding fathers would appreciate. The founding fathers would look at sports fans like retards. Yes, indeed. The founding fathers would look at any grown man who played a sport as somewhat unqualified and inept and probably has some psychological development issues. But they would really look at the fans as even worse. So let's not get it twisted again. Let's twist it back rather, right? What's decent and should be celebrated as an individuated individual? Pursuit of knowledge, pursuit of athleticism, not necessarily in competition, but that's great. But fans don't do that. Fans are fanatic about it. Might as well be Dungeons and Dragons role playing. You know, if that was popularized, that's what they would have built stadiums for. Okay, but fools are too basic for that to be fans for that. No, no props to D&D necessarily. Like, but that does have a qualitative imagination, right? Whereas football has mad skill, no doubt. But I'm saying for the fans, you know, y'all, the founding fathers would not appreciate how complicated you could break down the place. All right, I don't care how much you think is into it, but the founding fathers would not. necessarily think you were the height of development, or probably wouldn't speak to you in the first place. So, self interjection. Let me return. Um, so we got bailouts is institutional socialism. We have the sports stadiums, taxpayer funded. These are oligarchical collectivism slash institutional socialism. And really, like anything that is put forth in a few over the many fashion, which is the true definition of oligarchy, right? Is not monarchy, is, patriarchy, one over the many. Oligarchy is few over the many, right? So any situation where you see that there's few over the many in benefit and in redundancy on many levels, this is institutional socialism. So definitely the institutions of authority are oligarchical collectivists. And the United States happens to have the biggest example of oligarchical collectivism, that the same people that renounce the term socialism without anything but cliches in their head will celebrate the biggest oligarchical collectivist institution on the planet, that's supposedly the biggest polluter on the planet, also the United States military. Now, no discussion about good or bad, but this is socialist. Okay? The raising of money to put together anything via taxpayer systematic for the function of society is socialism. Okay? So I'm just naming off a few really potentially questionable and maybe nefarious operations that are institutional socialism. Also, the police and the jail systems, the privatization of prison. This is all institutional socialism, no doubt. Don't get it twisted. Schools, also public school system. This is institutional socialism. Now we're getting into areas that are slightly less nefarious, one would hope. The education of our youth is institutional socialism. And, of course, the Trumpian policy of building a wall through the 1,000-mile Sonoran Desert, this too would be institutional socialism. That unthinking people really would celebrate, at the same time criticizing any idea of individual socialism, any idea pertaining to helping someone who might be sick related to that. So break it down. Don't get your Tai Chi and your Chai Tea mixed up, but more importantly, do not get your support mixed up of institutional socialism and individual socialism. Because the mind state of individuals who do so do not help others nor themselves. We're stuck in a machinery mode. You're helping institutional falsehoods, lies, hollow walls. So I'm out. I guess I got 15 minutes, and that's 15. So peace.